Sometimes no sound.
Sometimes no
a
sound.
punch would land and it'd be nothing.
Nothing.
And
Yeah.
that was more frightening and deafening in a sense than the loudest possible impact.
And in a sense, each song that the band played was like a round in a prize fight. And if you look at the film again, you see when they finish certain songs, you look at the expressions on their faces. Oh, we got through that one.
Yeah.
Alive, we're still alive, we're still breathing, what's next? You know, but by the time I did Raging Bull, I had no, you know, I didn't. We were pretty much protected by Winkler, Charlotte Winkler, Irwin Winkler, my friend who produced the picture, protected from problems with the studio, and it went over budget. I went over schedule like 6 weeks. You know, the fight scenes became extremely complicated. And then when it was released, that studio also went through a change of the guards in a way, and the picture was released about 10 days before Heaven's Gate, and from the same studio. Heaven's Gate opened and closed, I guess, the opening day, and the studio went down with it, and we lost the re-release of the film, for example, for Academy nominations. Usually when the Academy nominates a picture, they re-release it, you know, and they give it a little broader
release.
Didn't
get that.
We didn't get it because it was nominated for a number of things, but there was nobody at the studio at the time.
Well, on that topic, you were nominated for Best Director for Raging Bull, a movie which subsequently, by consensus, was deemed the best movie of the 80s, even though it came right at the beginning of the decade.
Yeah.
Okay. Robert Redford, by the way, had won that year for his directorial debut in Ordinary People.
Ordinary People, yeah.
You were also nominated for Best Director for Last Temptation of Christ. You were nominated most recently for Goodfellas, but Kevin Costner won both Best Picture and Best Director for Dances with Wolves. I'm sure there's no quarrel with the pictures that won and the people who won, but you have never won a Best Director Academy Award. Some people say, if you want to go back, The Taxi Driver was the best movie of the 70s.
Yeah.
Age of Innocence did not get you a nomination. Does this stuff bother you? Does it not?
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, it bothered me a lot when I wasn't nominated for Taxi Driver. But myself and Hal Ashby that year, Bound for Glory was nominated for Best Picture too, and he wasn't nominated. We were replaced by Ingmar Bergman and Lena Wertmüller. How that works out as American directors, I don't understand. But you know, it's a certain thing that, any event. But the years go by. The years go by, and then
meanwhile,
meanwhile. Raging Bull, as I tell you, I really didn't think the film was going to be, I knew it was going to be a powerful picture because I was putting everything I knew into it, but, everything I felt, I should say, you know. So when it was nominated, it got like a number of nominations. I was just happy that it got nominated. I thought it was really interesting. And when I didn't win the award, I realized, I saw what I thought would be my place, if any, in this quote industry, unquote. Is that I began to realize that if I continue to try to make the pictures that I really want to make myself, that I have to live with the fact that they're not going to be awarded on that level. It's just not going to happen.
So maybe you're in the Lifetime Achievement category. Maybe someday you're standing up there and you get the Lifetime Achievement Award. But from what I sense about you, even though your work may be apart from the dead center of the mainstream, there's something about you that feels a real connection to the history of Hollywood and the history of the motion picture industry. And there's probably a part of you that would like to stand there with that thing in his hand as some sort of affirmation that you're part of what you fantasized about as a kid.
Well, you said it, actually, because as a child, I remember the first time the Academy Awards was televised, you know, in the early 50s. And so it became, you know, it is the most high-profile award in the world. It gets more attention, and it's, in an odd way, has, I don't want to use the word prestige, but more than the Nobel Prize and you know, the Pulitzer Prizes and that sort of thing, so that it becomes difficult when you're excluded. But the reality is that, you know, I always have to remember that the idea is making the picture. It's not getting the award. In other words, it's making the film, not the success. And I think a lot of kids today want to be filmmakers. They want this, they want that. And what they really want is to be famous. They want to be successful. They don't understand that. It's got to be about the work.
From Hollywood and back to Raging Bull, as we said before, you've never been a sports fan, so you had no affinity for boxing.
Right.
So De Niro takes you to the prize fights, right?
No, it was Jay Cox and Brian De Palma and Walter Bernstein took me to my first fight at Madison Square Garden. And then a few weeks later, I went to see another with De Niro and Jake LaMotta and Pete Savage at Madison Square. That's all I saw, too. That's it. That's all I needed to see.
Were you attracted, repulsed, both?
I found it pretty brutal. You know the image of the blood dripping on the rope in Raging Bull, where they're announcing the winner of, I believe it's a big fight that he has.
Ray Robinson?
I think one of the Ray Robinson fights, yeah. I saw that the second time I went to see a fight, and they were announcing there were 5 fights that night, and they were announcing the next guy. Well, the blood is still dripping on the rope in front. So what is this? It's crazy. You know, I always imagine fighting. My idea of a fair fight is like Buster Keaton in the fight scenes. You ever see that scene when he's a big guy, he's fighting in the ring, he goes, he picks up the stool and starts hitting him with the stool. That's my, you know, pick up a garbage pail, throw it at a person. That's it, you know. But and then run.
Right. It's sort of like Alfalfa against Butch and the Little Rascals.
Forget it.
And then Spanky was behind the curtain with that boxing glove on a pole, and he's trying to hit Bush in the back of the head.
You know, I don't. What's the idea of this? These 2 guys get up and they start hitting each other. That's what their work is. You know, good morning, bye, dear, I'm going to work. That's it. And the guy gets beat up in a ring, and he beats up another guy. But I thought, you know, I hate to use the word, but it became like a metaphor in a way. I just saw the connection between the ring and the kitchen and the living room and the bedroom and the street. It's all the same.
So to you is all a story about this guy's betrayal, self-destruction, but then in the end, in some way, maybe not in some, here's the parade and he's at the front of it, but in some quiet, realistic, human way, his redemption.
Yeah, right. And because I understood it then. I understood what I wanted to do when I finally realized that I should make the picture. I've been working on the film for like 3 years during the period of New York, and during the period of Last Waltz. But it was a very difficult time because of the rejection of the films and
you were leading kind of a self-destructive life.
Yeah, very self-destructive period. That you kind of go, you know, one doesn't have to. It's a very subtle thing because one doesn't have to also deal with chemicals to be self-destructive. It could just be one's thinking and one's behavior towards people around them.
Or it could be both.
You know, and then when you combine the 2, it's even worse. So that then I understood what I wanted the character Jake to be, and I also understood that, as you said, you put it very nicely about in a human way, that it is some sort of quiet redemption. Although I always felt, and I've said this many times, I always felt that when I did that scene, I didn't feel comfortable. Not with the scene. I'm talking about I didn't feel comfortable with myself yet.
Which
people.
Scene?
At the end when he's talking in the mirror.
He's doing the Brando thing from On the Waterfront. I could have been a contender and all that stuff. And it looks pathetic. But to you, that was the moment where he turned it around. Yeah.
Yeah, he accepted himself. And he was easier on himself and easier on the people around him. You know? Stop punishing himself and stop punishing the people around him. And I found that very moving. I mean, for myself, doing that scene, I wasn't there yet. That's where I wanted to get myself, you know. And I think, you know, if you ever get to that level, it's really good. I don't know if I am, but in the past few years, things are, you get more. Maybe it's just getting older, where you get more. You gauge what you should really get upset about. This one's a 3. You know, don't worry about it, because you're going to get a 10 in about 2 minutes. Somebody's going to come in with a, you know, you're going to get something really, and then, you know, especially when you're shooting a film, because the minute you walk on the set, you could get crazy, you know, as you know. So it's, you know, the same thing with work as it is with life, too. And you just you get past things and try to deal with a little more humanity.
What does obsession mean to you?
You know, I think that word has been used a lot for some of the films I made, and I don't quite know. I know I'm capable of it. I know I'm capable of being obsessed with certain scenes, or certain themes, and certain characters, certain pieces of music. I guess what's good about the obsession, when it does hit, and very often, I should say, a lot of the times it hits constantly when I'm shooting a picture or editing or working on a script, is that it's the refinement of the idea. It's the refinement of the emotion and the psychology of it. And it's a dangerous thing, because I'll continually go over something and go over something, go over it, cleaning it, sharpening it, refining it, refining it, refining it. After getting it right, doing it again. Maybe even dealing with certain themes and subject matter and from picture to picture. You know, going back and looking at it from this angle. Let's go back and take another 45 degrees here. You know, and it seems never to be, luckily, so far I haven't gotten too bored.
Do you beat yourself up at all? I know you say that you can barely watch your own films, but
yeah.
do you ever, if you are watching them, say, even if it was a film that you knew was good, now I'm looking at this scene, wait a minute. This scene is 20 seconds too long.
Sure.
That edit is in not the right place.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, I have, I don't really look at my own pictures, but in the past year, they've shown Taxi Driver a lot on TV, and I look at it without the sound, turn the sound down. And I look at certain things. Of course, when you turn the sound down, of course, you're judging the timing of a scene. It's impossible, because with the sound, it's going to be a little different. But I feel that, my God, I should have cut that a little sooner, or that. But that's kind of nonsense. I mean, the person that you are at that time made that film. You can't go back and change that person. That's the authenticity of it. You are that person at that time. That's it. There's no going back. You made a mistake, you made a mistake. That's the end of it. And you move on.
Could you make a huge scope picture? I mean, visually huge scope? As a student of film, do you look at King Kong and say, I could do that?
No,
I know Spielberg's your buddy. Could you do Jurassic Park? Could you do E.T.?
You know, Empire of the Sun. The staging in Empire of the Sun is extraordinary. The Battle of Shanghai is extraordinary.
Could you do that Kurosawa stuff? I mean,
yeah, well, you know, the thing about it is that these are the films I really love. And Ford has it. And Anthony Mann's picture, El Cid and Fall of the Roman Empire. God, there's so many. There's a number of others, too. And in fact, for fun, for the enjoyment, I watch Westerns, and I watch big scope films and widescreen, you know. But I kind of think it's a measure of where I came from, in that I know that Steven Spielberg came from Phoenix, Arizona, and he understands light the way Michael Powell and a number of other people understood light. Michael Powell is the great British director, because Michael came from the English countryside and understood that the shadow will be here at around 4 o'clock. This will work there. Me, I was living in a tenement. I saw a brick wall. Down the street, I saw, like, out one window I could see the Empire State Building, which was good. That's it. So I have no understanding of where light is. Huh? You know, I know about possibly interior lighting, but I have no sense. In all the stories I have been attracted to are personal stories, stories where people are always talking in hallways, you know, very, very narrow areas rather than going on big screen and scope. I tried a little of that in New York to a certain extent, but that had more to do with the nature of the genre than the actual story, the genre of the musical. And there's no doubt I would love to do that.
You wish people could see your films in movie houses? Like, you know, we're not so old. I went to movies in movie houses, but now they go to see your movies, for the most part. 95% of Americans see your movies in multiplexes.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad. It's really too bad. I don't understand why you would break up a nice theater to make 2 small theaters and show the same film in both theaters. Is it me?
Staggered start times.
Have we staggered start times? This is an outrage. Tear it down. Go in there, break those walls down. Let the audience, let us be heard. Let's hear you. You know, go in there and demand proper projection of an image so that the image is, like, in focus.
You can feel it deep inside.
Folks, usually we're not on Friday nights. We will be at 1:30 Eastern Time tomorrow for an hour, at which point we'll say our goodbyes as we wrap up our stint on later. But in a sense, for the true interviews, this was our last waltz, and we were honored to have you be part of it. Thank you very much.
It's great.
Martin Scorsese. We'll see you later.
First, he conquered space. Now he wants to rule the seas. William Shatner, a very special guest star, Sequest, 8/7 Central, NBC Sunday.